Ever seen me and boys did lie.
I enjoy the image there. That's what it was like.
Swimming in paper. I was trying to find a better image than that, but a lot of them were very depressing. So I was like, probably not a great idea.
Was he just drowning in paper?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, it's just my own fault, but it's right swimming with paper, and people looking very depressed. Well, that was
I should still get nightmares of your dreaded email. Liam, I found another survey paper.
I've sent Liam many of those messages.
across many different
Usually on the weekends, I would be reading something.
Well, it would always be after.
Oh my god!
It'll be on a Friday. We'll be like, oh yeah, we found 4 or 5 more papers. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's gonna be fun. And then over the weekend, oh, it's 3 more. And I'm like, oh, wonderful.
The funniest one though is when I was talking to Robert Cosara at the Viz conference last year in wherever it was, Baltimore. And as I was talking to him, I remembered he published a survey paper back in 2003 that we hadn't considered.
Did you say he hated that paper?
Yeah, he said he didn't like it, yeah.
We've done this on purpose just to make sure more people read.
We weren't talking about surveys or anything, we were talking about something completely different. But anyways, it popped into my head as I was talking to him. Okay, Liam, you're welcome to start.
So, my name is Liam McNabb, and I'm going to be presenting the second part of the survey of surveys, mapping landscape of survey papers and information visualization. So we're quickly going to go over what Bob discussed in his presentation. So he talked about the motivation of the survey of surveys and the main classification. He also talked about the classification of classifications, where we looked at the structure of how the taxonomies are created. He gave a little bit of meta-analysis, which we're going to be going into in a bit more depth, and he gave a couple of examples of some of the surveys that we looked at. So I'm going to move a bit of a different way to Bob. Bob kind of went in a more linear fashion, and I'm just going to show you a couple more examples that are interesting and fill in some of the gaps. So here we've got a survey paper by Vilo et al. About group structures in graph papers. So here we can see it's a hierarchical unique mapping paper. If we have a look, we can see the two classifications on the axes, the y-axis and the x-axis. So this looks at the different types of techniques, as we can see on the y-axis here, and on the x-axis we can see how they are grouped together to give a more interesting visualization. So this also has some interesting points. For example, this is 3D. It maps papers based on whether the primary focus of the paper is on the group structures or the secondary focus. So that allows you to easily figure out which one of these it is. Another interesting point is that it has icons quite a lot of the different cells for the taxonomy. So these are especially useful if you find that it's hard to discriminate between different classifications. We toyed with it ourselves. And finally, the interesting thing is that this is an old survey paper. They've actually extended the survey paper. And we found out quite late on that there was a lot of papers that were being updated within the next couple of years. So in this example, the taxonomies are quite similar, but in other examples they completely changed the taxonomies, and we had to change how we looked at them based on that. So we have another example. So I've taken a sample from the real world applications. This is by Coed al. And it's based on visualization and visual analysis for financial data. So we have a 2D 1-to-n mapping. So we can see here that each of the papers at the top, as we can see here, are mapped against different techniques, which I'll get to in a second. And you can see that in some of these cases, for example here, the paper can be classified into more than one technique. So some interesting things about this is that they use Kimes technique taxonomy from 2002, and this is a recurring theme across multiple surveys. So what they stand for, or they represent different types of graphs or different types of visualization. So here we have standard 2D visualizations, standard 3D visualizations, geometrically transformed visualizations, iconic displays, dense pixel displays, and stacked displays. So that's one of the interesting things. The other interesting thing is they use multiple tables, and this lets them get a more in-depth view of the information. So here we have one of the tables which looks at the visualizations. They have a second table that looks at the different data types that are being visualized within the paper. And so you can see a lot more information with multiple tables. And they look at the automated visualization techniques as the primary feature focus. They have a couple more, but this is mainly for tools that need or do not need to be manually or have data manually input into them. They work with more than one set of data. So in Bob's presentation, he gave a little bit of meta-analysis, and I'm going to quickly go into more. We tried a lot of different visualization techniques to see what information we could get, and this is the first one we came across. So this is citation data. So we looked at each of the summarized papers, which is roughly 30, and we looked at the citations that they used rather than they had. So we can see here at the top there's a year range between 1886 and 2016, or is that 2017 would be more appropriate. So across those year ranges we have each of the summarized papers, as you can see on the y-axis. Those are classified based on the natural topics that we had that we discussed in the previous paper. And also we have color signified by the total amount of references in the paper. So we can see that when we first looked at it, we thought that everything would be quite scrupulous. Centered around 1990, we thought would be kind of the main focus, which it is. But there's a lot of points that go very far back, much further back than we anticipated. For example, in Heinrich and Weisskopf's state-of-the-art in parallel coordinates, which was discussed in Bob's paper, the first reference we find is in 1885. And I would tell you what paper that is, but it is French, and I do not want to try it because I might offend some people. But yeah, that is a French paper on the use of parallel coordinates. And we can see more outliers as well. For example, the cartograms in the geospatial section, they also go quite far back. And this is quite good because from what I've found, those are very enjoyable survey papers. Letting you learn about how the techniques were first used, and knowing that may help you really understand their uses when you make your next project. So I'll just leave that for a bit so people can have a look. Okay, so next of all we'll be looking at the analysis that further analysis that we did. So one of the key points of our paper was to look at how to, or what has been done, but also what hasn't been done. So we focused on looking at open research, and we took that all together by looking at surveys. And surveys was originally designed by Beck et al. And we created an interactive literature browser using this software. So this is live right now. You can visit it at sos.swansea.ac.uk, and it will let you easily browse through all the different papers that we looked at. And you can see that you can easily cluster stuff based on these tags that we manually input. So I've taken two keywords, which is the interaction analysis, which comes from our modified pipeline, and also the topic text focus, which was a natural subject-based cluster. And we can see that there's two papers that fall into this. We can also see the kind of distribution of these papers along the graph up at the top. So why did we use this? Well, we used it mainly to, for ourselves, to keep track of everything. There was a lot of data, and we needed to make sure that we kept it all classified in a way that we could use it. And we found some interesting information by doing this. So we logged a lot of open research. That's one of the key reasons we looked at it. So as I said before, we have an interactive literature browser for stuff, or for showing what has been done, and we key logged everything that hasn't been done. So in most survey papers, most general survey papers, so a lot of the short papers didn't, we found that there was an open research area. And for that, we logged all the information and we grouped them up to see what open research areas were kind of needed across the broad scale of information visualization. So I have 8 different open research areas. Does anyone want to guess what the first one will be?
How about larger data sets? I'm cheating, aren't I? I don't remember.
Yeah. Okay.
But that's got to be there.
So it was actually, the first one that came up with 50% was evaluation. So evaluation mainly focuses on different studies. So off the top of my head, I can remember use case studies, quantitative studies, qualitative studies, longitudinal studies, and just user studies. And this is quite interesting because I've seen there's a lot of user studies being made already, and there's still such high demand that I assume that it's because these user studies aren't fully being used or fully being known to the general public, which is why I'm going to bring up one of my useful points from the survey is the perception papers. So the perception papers, if you do not remember, there was 3 perception-based papers in our classification, and they mainly look at user studies and how people use these visualizations, and they're very useful. So there is Fuchs et al. Does a survey paper on experimental data glyphs, and it compares different user studies on different glyphs to test which ones work in which scenarios. There's also one by Johannes et al. On evaluating parallel coordinates, and it asks whether parallel coordinates are more useful to a user based on the scenario than other different visualization techniques. So that is quite a useful thing to know. We also have missing scenarios, so this is more of a base-by-base cases. In a lot of classifications, if they are made correctly, you can see a lot of empty cells, or cells with a low frequency, and these point at those cells. So if you use our literature browser, you find the subject you want to look at, such as graphs. You can look at missing scenarios, and we can easily depict what is missing from the landscape. We also have scalability. Scalability is the use of data. So this can be based on the scale, or moving the scale of the visualization, or limiting the scale of the data in order to improve performance, or just making it more visually aesthetically pleasing. We have interaction techniques interaction techniques are becoming more and more frequent. So using actually inputting into the visualizations yourselves. This will allow you to try out new things and is especially useful for focus and context. We have extended data dimensions, which, as Bob pointed out earlier, is still a massive topic in the information visualization landscape. So 25% of papers that we summarized had that as an open research area. So that mainly looks at adding more dimensions to visualizations, such as high dimensional visualization. We also have tasks. Tasks is actually quite useful. So it's about the use of the techniques and the most appropriate the most appropriate use. And these are mainly for survey papers. So a lot of survey papers use task taxonomies to appropriately depict what types of visualization or what types of visualization should be used within the field. We also have tools. Tools again are pretty useful across whole scape, and this has been altered to include generic tools, unique tools, and also some just a broad range of tools. And finally, the last one I have is fuzziness and uncertainty. So this is a very hard field to visualize. It just mainly focuses on the error found within each visualization in order to give people more understanding of how accurate the results are. And I've added my classification of these results. I have rotated it to make it easier to see in the slides. So you can see across these papers here at the top, the evaluation is quite high in frequency, and that is it. So we've looked at the classification, why this paper is important, and what we can learn from it, and I've given you the results, and also some interesting meta information. And that's it. Is there any questions?
On the previous slide, was that all the papers?
No, that was the summarized papers.
Oh, okay.
Did I not mention that? I was supposed to mention that. Okay, I'll remember to mention that. Maybe I should talk about it. So, this was also only the summarized papers. So should I make it more clear at this point that from this point onwards we focus on the summarized papers only, which is roughly 30 of them.
Okay.
Do you think that would be better?
Possibly. Yeah.
Okay. Right.
Okay.
You could also call these like the focus papers. That would be another
Okay.
word.
The focus papers.
Nice.
Okay.
Any comments or questions for Liam?
I don't know if it's my eyesight, but on the first when you had to show the classification on the first slide
This
or
one?
the second slide,
This
next
one.
yeah, I couldn't see. I don't know if it's easy, if there's a way of sort of, I don't know, splitting that in two, or I don't know, making that bigger.
I wasn't sure if I should split it in two.
Yeah, that's the problem.
Just because if I split it in two, it removes this, and also if I froze and I needed to look at it, it would not be there.
Yeah. Okay.
I could cut out this part here and try and enlarge it. So just this bit.
Or you could just have a zoom, almost like a lens, where you zoom in just to see. Because I can't read it. I don't know if that's not good.
Bring it blurry.
Yeah, have animations where you can zoom on this the top bit, and this the next bit, this the next bit.
It'll be like a screen on the day, won't it?
Yeah.
But it's
It's easier to get these out now.
There's a lot of information on one slide.
I've seen the resolution be higher on the, because I've seen that's a 720p.
Yeah, well,
so
I'm
nice.
having to crop it, or not crop it, to shrink it.
Yeah,
So it
as long as the
fits.
image is reasonable quality.
70 years now on the one following.
Oh, you mean this one? Yeah.
At the top of it, yeah.
That one, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's quite hard to read anyway. So what I could do is remove it and just add the end and the beginning.
Yeah, just put 3 dates. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. Can you make? Because you could make that a little bit bigger, couldn't you? That could stretch.
Yeah, I can make that bigger.
You
It
would
looked,
lose the bottom bit.
yeah, I wasn't really thinking about the your age because it's always been a problem because
There's a lot of.
we didn't expect it to be that long of a range.
Yeah.
So, and I was hoping I was wrong about the parallel coordinates. They would shrink. But
Is the top scale linear?
yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I suppose you can just have in big letters the start, the end, and the middle. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you could have in big letters the first year,
Yeah.
the
So
middle
that's,
year, and 2016.
Yeah, that's what. Yeah, that's what.
Yeah.
Oh, that's what you mean. I thought you
Yeah.
meant literally the word start and end.
No.
no.
That's no.
Just the start year and the end year.
Yeah.
Just make them bigger.
Yeah. Okay.
Was it very clear about what was going on because you didn't see the first part?
Not overly, but that's fine. One thing, it's not normally something people consider, but if someone's colourblind, is there anything in there that they're not going to be able to see? It's just a thought.
Sometimes try and
I
use.
just throw that in
A
there.
lot of them are.
Often use.
This one would be the one that would cause a problem. I don't know.
What colour
I'll
are most
check
people
that.
colourblind to?
Green.
Green, what's the word?
That's green, yeah. You can't see it.
That's why I know it's too much work to change things, but sometimes people will use different shading techniques rather than just a plain colour.
Yeah. Well, there was some debate about this colour scheme for a while. I think you wanted the rainbow colour scheme
But the rainbow one
originally, and I kept
is
saying no.
Yeah. The rainbow one is.
I know Color Brew has colorblind friendly recommendations.
Yeah.
But not a linear one, unfortunately. That's the problem. Colourblind doesn't do.
This isn't linear, so
Oh, isn't it?
yeah, it wasn't enticing enough.
I think the Kindleman colour map is supposed to be good for.
Which one?
Like Kindleman.
Not heard of that.
It's like purple and then green, black, I think. Purple, There's one for 4 categories
The
basically.
problem is the colourblind ones, if you're colourblind friendly, and they're often going to be not particularly nice aesthetically for.
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
because you have to reduce the amount.
Yeah.
I might
But
just say,
you
I might have a little warning at the bottom that says, I'm sorry
Don't know
for
if that was-
colourblind.
You get some advice there.
So someone brought this up because the software I do, where it just graphs everything in different colours depending on what the sensor axis is or whatever. Someone made this point, so I went through the software and made everything literally adaptable. So there's a tab where you can select what the object is and select the colour.
Yeah.
All three, red, green, blue.
Mm.
Just I had to change the whole lot just to keep everyone happy. It's a valid point, isn't it?
Mm.
Yeah.
It is, yeah.
I didn't think about putting my
But-
I've thought about putting my software vanilla for a paper.
No, it's just the sort of thing you can consider like in the future. Like.
Because people are going to print out in black and white as well.
Yeah.
So it should work in grayscale.
Yeah, for software we do that. I've not thought about it really
Yeah.
for papers. They've always.
I've had someone say not for me, but I've had someone ask a question saying, no, I can't see that. I can't see the difference because I'm colourblind and the conference that.
I'd actually be quite alright with that because it let me. I kept going to the projector even though I set it up so that I had a pointer that would tell you that. So maybe that would help me use this a bit more to really represent the kind of red bits.
Okay.
I really like that mouse pointer thing. What is that?
It's just a mouse point built in. So I'm using Google Slides because it's online, so it's easy to use, and it's just a built-in pointer.
That's really nice. I like that a lot.
It was a bit awkward. I was standing on this side, the pointer was here, so I only remembered to use it when I went over to point at the actual screen. So.
You get little USB accelerometer gyro thing.
Yeah, I know.
Like that, it's a mouse, but that would do exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
So you can do that, wave at the screen.
I've been interested in one of those just because I think I'm pretty bad with my hands when I do presentations. So you have to hold on to something.
Smoke.
Yes, it does. The tremor shows up, and when you try to use a pointer, it ends up wiggling.
Well, that's why I was, just
Yeah.
circling instead of holding it straight.
Yeah.
Yeah. I learned about that.
So your heart rate goes up. I think Roy Wilson and that lot, they did a study at a conference, and they put heart rate monitors on experienced people, and well-established academics, and also students, and they monitored the heart rate before, during, and after, and they could see with the normal academics, the heart rate would actually maintain quite a high level even after, because they're more concerned about what people would think about it, whereas the students, once it's over, they're relaxed, they don't care anymore.
That's really funny.
So so when you're up there, your heart rate is higher, quite significantly higher.
I tried to hide it, you just can't really.
Get a Fitbit or something.
Okay,
What's on the next slide? I'm trying to think of
I
that.
have some comments.
Okay.
So slide 3, the sample graph survey.
Yes.
I think it would be nice, two things. I think it would be nice just to mention that there are a large volume of graph survey papers.
Okay.
I think that would be fun to mention. If I would actually like to mention it in my half, if I can remember.
It's a bit easier to see in your half. That's why I've only got a couple of. So originally I was going to follow yours because yours had the first two sections, but as I tried to do it, I realised people aren't going to remember it. So it's best to just highlight some interesting bits and then move on.
Okay. You're allowed to reuse some of the images.
Yeah.
If you wanted to have some overview image and say this is where we are on the table, you're allowed to do that. Second comment is I think you can get a better quality image on this. Like it actually is a little bit blurry on my screen, this image.
Yeah, that's because it was downscaled.
Okay.
So
I think that situation could be improved. I think you can get a version that's not blurry.
It's a little abstract.
Online.
This one is very
That's the one from online, the full one.
Okay. Well, maybe you can do it offline.
What do you mean? Crop it. So the original was the crop, and then they sent me the new one.
Okay, and the new one, is it still blurry?
That's that one.
Okay. Well, if you need help, I can help you getting a non-blurry one. Like if you're not sure about that.
Scan it from the picture.
It must be possible. It must be possible to get one that's not blurry.
Okay. It's mainly because I've had to reduce the size to a fit. So,
Okay.
because it was like twice as big as this. So.
Slide 5. Now this is not a big deal. You use the word Bob's paper a lot. Well, no.
Did I say paper?
Yeah,
Right.
yes, we did this a few times.
Bob's presentation.
You can say.
Would you
Bob.
like me to call you Bob or?
That's fine. Yeah.
Okay, I'll keep it relaxed.
You could say Bob's half or Bob's presentation.
I should say.
Something like
I meant to say presentation.
I know.
I think.
I know.
I've said I remembered changing it myself to presentation at some point, but I obviously missed a lot of them already.
I know.
Okay.
Slide 6. No, this is not really your fault, but it would be great to try to fix it.
Mm-hmm.
The URL at the bottom is very hard to read. Like
Right.
the font color is light purple on
Oh,
the
you
white
picked it.
background.
That's because
Yours is,
it's blue on here
The hyperlink
yeah,
because it hasn't been clipped.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe
I
you
should
can make it bigger. You make the font bigger.
I could make it bigger.
I think it's one of the clearer things on the page, to be fair.
I can't say
Okay,
'cause it's
never mind.
reflection.
I didn't know.
So this one it's easier to get a better picture of this because you can obviously resize. I just resized it before I took the screenshot, so everything was kind of in the right place.
It's no big deal.
Was there anything
I
else?
just thought it was.
Was there anything else you wanted to know about this? Like during my talk, did I miss anything that interested you?
Actually, there is one point back on slide 5.
Okay.
You said, I'll give everybody a few seconds to look at that.
Yeah.
A great thing to do instead would just say, are there any questions at this point? Like, does anybody want to ask? That would be fine.
Okay. I was so when I did that, I was worried because I thought I was going really fast. So I was like, oh, I need to extend the time. I think 15 was what I was looking for.
Yes,
so
15 minutes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Just in case.
You have
there's
some more.
questions
You
in
have
between.
5 more minutes.
Yeah, but because there's questions and you are asking questions in between, I want to make sure that I can get it done within 15 minutes.
Okay.
That's just me being careful.
And if you do questions at that point, make sure you say before we move on, because if you say any questions and people ask questions, the rest of it, like,
That's
well, what
true,
about the
that's
rest of
true.
it? What about you finished it?
Yes, you're right. You're right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Slide 7.
Okay.
I wonder if a bigger font would make sense.
Yeah. Definitely.
Right. So we exactly.
With the evaluation, missing scenarios, the text that you added.
So I tried to space them out to make them very easily readable.
I'd recommend us putting below the title like a tagline, just like a 1 sentence introduction to what these things are. Because if someone came in halfway through, they'd look at 50% evaluation. What's that mean? Like they would get to the first 3 and then go, oh, hang on, that doesn't add up. That doesn't add up to 100. So there would be, you need to say
so say
percentage
based on X
papers
amount.
containing.
I actually blanked and forgot how many surveys we went through in the focus papers. So I said 30. I don't know if that's right.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I don't know.
Is enough that it looks right.
Yeah. I can't remember either.
So that's normally rotated up.
Yeah.
So these are on the x-axis, but I couldn't get it to fit in the way they look nice, so I just put it on the side.
And it would be useful, maybe I missed it, but it would be useful to mention what the percentage is right at the beginning. Because I didn't know, I wasn't sure
Yeah,
of that.
that's what Rich said.
Yeah.
So we'll just add this short sentence and say, so we have the
Percentage of papers
percentage of
containing
papers
these.
that contain these words, or contain these key open research areas.
Yeah. So key open research areas.
Which of these was hard to follow of the 8 open research areas?
What was missing scenarios again?
Missing scenarios was the case-by-case basis where it's easier to explain with
You
actually.
need to look for gaps in your.
Looking for gaps in the classification. So they say, there's lots of open areas within missing scenarios in this paper. You can see where at,
Okay.
C2 or something
Okay.
like that.
Okay. Oh yeah, of course.
So you can see that, I mean, it doesn't work for this one, but there's lots of missing for heterogeneity.
So conceptually, it's so difficult to get your head around because they still think of it. Okay, it's a paper, and you think, oh no, it's like you think of just a literature review. It's not. It's a literature of literature reviews.
So I focused a lot on the classifications rather than the papers. Was that okay? I think that was alright.
I would also rename the title of this slide to something like Meta Future Work or Survey of Future Work. I think Survey of Future Work would be great. Something like that. But the phrase future work definitely has to appear somewhere in the title. Because that's what it's about, really.
Yeah. I think I did. I forgot my examples for tools as well.
Out of interest, you've got 18% on fuzziness and uncertainty is obviously very calculated, but you say evaluation 50%. It doesn't look like evaluation takes up exactly 50% of the things. Is it? It is exactly 50.
Yeah.
Okay. So try to count that up.
I had to re-evaluate. It used to be 0.9%, but I miscounted the summaries. Yeah, 18%. So it's not. It's really not a lot for fuzziness and uncertainty.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
So seven of reference.
14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 17. There's 14. Yeah.
Is there any more metadata that we could include? Do we have any more graphs? Okay.
Whoa. Prepare.
Which one is that?
So we also looked at the actual citation. So we looked at the citation data earlier of each paper, and this was a general scale of how they're being cited. So I don't actually have a color. No, I do have color coding. Just trying to see. So we based each topic. So we clustered everything into the topics. We looked at how many citations they had using Google Scholar, and then we broke them into before 2010 and after 2010. Did I mention that at all? Okay.
I think I mentioned that.
Okay. No, I was going to mention at the end some of the limitations, and I didn't do it. I don't think, because I talked about perception early.
Okay.
So one of the limitations was that as you go back, as the years go on, you're more likely to have the urban research fulfilled. So that's why we focus mainly on the more recent ones, and which is why we broke it down. And you can see that there is a lot of citations for before 2009, which is to be expected because they're older, they have more time for more citations. But in general, 50% of them, 50% of the surveys had more citations than beforehand. And in that case, 9 of them were new topics. So we can see there's a lot more surveys being made recently.
It's a nice graph.
I added it here just in case they were like, oh, okay.
Yes.
But you've looked at the citations, but how do we know how that correlates later?
Good. Any other metadata that you left out of the second half?
No, I
Okay.
don't recall.
Okay.
Good. I think that's it. Yeah.
Your Kessler, is that Kessler one that's old? It's the old
It
one.
might be the old one.
Yeah.
I've got the
it's
one
the
that
old
they
one.
gave me.
Yeah, that's the old one.
I got the new one if you want.
Yeah, okay.
No,
It's there for it. It's
not
only there because it has to be.
But where do you test 2 then?
This is what they gave me.
Yeah.
That's, so we have to, if we're getting funded by CAS, we have to put these in. So
Have you got the acknowledgements?
no, I haven't got any.
That's true.
Yeah.
You want the acknowledgements in there.
Should I
Yes.
just take them from the paper?
Yes, copy and paste the acknowledgements. Yes, very good points.
Should I?
Also, I don't know if things are et al. Is it et al or et al? Does it not matter? I would say
I don't
et al.
think it
Does
doesn't
it not
matter.
matter?
I don't know.
Well, I didn't realise you were saying that. I was thinking it made me realise I have no idea which
I
is the
didn't
right
think it
one.
mattered.
Oh, okay.
Like, I don't think I'm going
Is
to
that
offend
what it is?
anyone.
Okay. It would be double out if it was all.
I hope I don't offend anyone by saying that. It just sounds bad. I think I'll be put off if I said et al. Well, I can't even say now.
Et al.
Et al. I think it would put me off if I was in the middle of the presentation and said et al. I mean, it put me off then.
Good. Thank you, Leo.
So who's going first? Is that you three?
Me.
You three. You're the first one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, Bob's
Oh, you're first, of course. Yeah, no, I suppose you're first.
Bob, this is not my laptop. My laptop would not take in the input. So because it's online, what I was thinking is that I could use your computer, and when we get to questions, then we'll have both sets of slides on the one anyway, which
Yeah.
would be useful.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Yep.
So I'll make sure to send them to you at some point.
Is everybody keeping a backup of their slides on the CS web server or something like that in case your things crash, your laptop crashes? Yeah? No? You doing that? Okay, please do that. Your laptop could get stolen. I forgot my laptop. I went to give a keynote in China last year, and I forgot my laptop. But I had my slides on the CS web server, no problem. Well, it was a little bit of a problem. The point is, you need to have a copy of your slides somewhere. I'm being a little bit hasty because of the 2 o'clock.
This was the start of the time. So you can take the bit, you've got accepted.